Carol Leonnig, I would just remind folks, because it feels like it's been 7,000 years since this story first burst into public view, but it burst into public view with an extraordinary filing from Jack Smith. And in that filing, Jack Smith annotates the call and response and the violent threats Trump made against people like Rusty Bowers, I think, is in there. Chris Krebs, I know, is in there. And the names are redacted. But what special counsel's office tries to establish before Judge Chutkan, before her ruling on a partial gag order, is what we all know to be true. When Trump attacks someone and calls for violence and demonizes them and dehumanizes them, threats almost always ensue.
Absolutely. I mean, Nicolle, this goes back as far as 2016 and 2015 when Donald Trump was running for president. You'll remember those moments in a stadium in Louisville, Kentucky, where he called upon his supporters in that stadium to get him out of here, I'll pay your legal bills if you get into any trouble. And we watched a black protester of Donald Trump questioning his Islamophobic remarks and raising questions about some of the white supremacy arguments he seemed to be favoring. We watched that black student be forcibly pushed and shoved and thrown out of the stadium by Trump supporters. It was sort of not just a call and response that took a few minutes, it took a few seconds. And it happened again while he was president. It happened again while he was now a candidate for re-election and facing legal challenges on multiple fronts. And Nicolle, I don't think it's unimportant to mention that there have been attempts on FBI agents' lives as a result of Donald Trump's time in office, when he repeatedly tried to say that the FBI was coming for him and politically motivated in investigating evidence that his campaign had had contacts with Russian assets or operatives, and that there was some sort of political fix-in to look at his campaign and try to target him, when really what FBI agents were looking at was the possibility that the Russian government was trying to pierce that campaign and use it to defeat Hillary Clinton and support a candidate who was definitely much more pro-Russia than Hillary Clinton.
Well, and Andrew, you know, P.S. Russia did. Russia was. Volume 1 of the Mueller report does establish that Russia very much did get involved in the 2016 election. I want to turn to something that, because I think I struggle so much with the fraught consequences of platforming Trump, maybe hasn't been illustrated adequately. But since he left office, Trump's association with violence has increased. I mean, he's had Nick Fuentes to Mar-a-Lago for dinner. His opening campaign event was in Waco, I'm sure not by accident, and the video was a glorification of the insurrection. His position is that he will pardon the insurrectionists. They've been convicted by juries of their peers of crimes as serious as seditious conspiracy. His ties to violent acts now match his adoration of violent rhetoric.
Absolutely. So, you know, you could add to the list that Carol so aptly cited the events on January 6th. And to your point, Nicolle, which is, even if you were to give the former president the benefit of the doubt that that's not what he intended on that day, and I say very much the benefit of the doubt since there's lots of evidence that's exactly what he intended, he clearly has embraced it since then. In other words, he did not have the reaction that any normal person would have, which is that this is absolutely a real strike against democracy. I would point out, though, for the legal issue for the Court of Appeals that will be evaluating what Judge Chutkan did, it's not so much that he is running for office. It is that he is a defendant in a criminal case. And there is longstanding court precedent, including Supreme Court precedent, that a trial judge is entitled to protect the administration of justice, and that does not trump the First Amendment. Think of this as a thought experiment. Even if you thought the defendant did not intend his words to cause violence, but he knew that, in fact, people would take them that way. The judge is entitled to say there are going to be limits on what you can say because we know that violence can ensue, and we have seen it ensue. So I think here the record before the Court of Appeals will be very strong, and the fact that there's also the state record of his former President Trump making statements about a law clerk, I think is really not going to sit well with judges in the Court of Appeals.
Let me show both of you what New York Attorney General Letitia James said outside of the courthouse in the last hour. Obviously, her civil fraud case is on trial now.
He's called me venomous. He's called me disgraceful. He's called me radical. He's called me a racist. And this is only week 3. The reality is that none of his behavior, which can best be described as performative, will change what's happening in the courtroom. We are here to enforce the law, and nothing will change that. No attacks, no words. I will not give in. I will not give up. I will only serve justice and enforce the law. Thank you.
It's extraordinary. And if you, again, we don't always amplify them, but Carol, the attacks against Attorney General Letitia James are only rivaled, I think, by the attacks against DA Fani Willis. They are as vicious as the attacks against Jack Smith, but they do include those words that she said, attacks that are venomous. He calls them disgraceful. He calls them radical. He calls them racist. He calls them pro-Obama. I mean, the smears on these Black women trying to hold him accountable, as they would any of the three of us if we did anything he is charged with doing, are next level.
Yeah, and it's interesting is a euphemism for it, that so often it's Black women that are targeted by Donald Trump as almost like a prop for his claims that he's being targeted. Interesting that the election officials who testified in the House January 6th investigation were, in tears, describing how their lives had been ruined, their sense of fear in their own homes was so high they were afraid to come out as a result of his targeting them personally in Georgia for doing things and corrupting the election process, which obviously it was proven they had no such role in that. I think it's worth underscoring, too, Andrew's smart point about the extensive precedent for judges' role in protecting their court proceedings. There's one world in the political battlefield where Trump is allowed to say a lot of things. His First Amendment rights are pretty broad in his effort to seek a return to the White House and to the Oval Office. But in a courtroom, if anything, Judge Chutkan has been pretty generous in her gag order in terms of allowing the former president, to continue to claim that this this prosecution is politically motivated, to continue to bash the Biden administration as calling the shots in this field. That's a lot of room for him to say what he wants to say in a federal court case in which he is the defendant. His picking on a court clerk in the New York case, again, a female, is not going to sit well, but it's also really beyond the pale. Most judges I have seen literally threaten, as I think I've said before on your program, Nicolle, to duct tape the defendant if they keep having this kind of behavior.